Hello there. How is everyone doing? Welcome. Let's talk about our children for a few minutes. And I'm a blessed mom of 5 children. 4 I gave birth to. My oldest is 25. My second one is a boy. My second one is 22. My third one is 19. My 4th child is 12, in that order. And then the boy that I adopted in Kenya, he is 22. So I have 5 children. I adopted him when he was 5 or 6 years old. So now, today I want to speak as a mom, and I want to speak as a sister and as a friend that has seen and experienced so much pain in our Kenyan community. Lately, we are losing our young people. When I talk about young people, these are children who were born when I came to America. They are 30 years old, they are 25, some are 26, very young children. In fact, it just breaks my heart. And when children are born, children don't come with a manual. And in the Kisi people, we have a saying that a woman who has given birth is crying, and a woman who has not given birth is also crying. Yeah. When you don't have children, or you've never been pregnant, or you have been trying, you're just telling God, bless me with any child. I'll be okay as long as I can see my image. We all know couples that have struggled to have children and they can't. And yes, we also know couples that worked extremely hard to have children, and now they have children with mental health issues. They have children with developmental disabilities. There's a guy by the name Harold Kushner. If you can read this book, let me just search the book. I read this book very many years ago. Harold Kushner. He was an American rabbi, and he wrote a book that I was given by my client, and the book was, the title of the book was, Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? Why do good people get bad children? When I say bad, you know what I mean. Or why do good people get these children with developmental disabilities? What do they do? Okay, Harold Kushner, in his book, he tells us that God cannot stop bad things from happening. There is no way. God doesn't have control. That is a very controversial statement, and it is complex to understand that, God does not have control, but at the same time we are praying for God to take control. As a Christian, it becomes complex because you've asked God for these children, and these children, you've been given these children, but bad things are happening to these children, or you've given birth to a child that doesn't have one hand, doesn't have 2 hands, doesn't have speech, cannot walk. You've given birth, you ask God for a child, and you get this child, and this child has all these things that are wrong with the child, and there's nothing you can do. Okay? So, he says, because everyone dies, and because we are free of God, eventually we can all, we are all going to die. Okay? God cannot stop the laws of nature. For example, if a man jumps off the building, God cannot prevent that from happening. He's just going to jump and he's just going to die. Okay? So Harold Kushner's son had a disease called progeria. Okay? Progeria is a kind of disorder where these children, they just age. They just age rapidly, and then you know what, they die. Okay? At age 3 after birth of Kushner's daughter, Aaron was diagnosed with rare. Yeah. So, and in this book, he has explained, he has written, the book was published in 1981, you know, and in his book, he has spoken about why God allows bad things to happen. However, it is hard to comprehend that God can allow for your children to die young. God can allow for your children to be born with developmental disabilities. It's hard to understand that, okay? In this book, he teaches us about comfort and notably what others need from us when we are facing when we are faced with tragedy. Okay, in short and simple, sustainable way, everyone needs to be there for these people. And his son died at what age? At age 3 and 25, and he died in 1977 when he was 14 years old. And it's a book that I read, I think it was 2004, because where I worked in the group home, my patient's mom had 2 sons. She was a very rich woman through inheritance and through investment. She lived in Princeton, and she did everything right. She went to school. She was a music teacher. She learned how to play the piano. Her husband was an investor, and they inherited a good amount of money from both their families, and they had a beautiful home in Princeton. And we became friends, and she had placed her son in one of the group homes that I worked for, and the other son had Asperger's, which is a developmental disability kind of disorder, but he was functional. He could drive, but he needed guidance. So she bought him a townhouse. He was living alone, and he was able to live life with a coach. He had a coach on a day-to-day basis to guide him and tell him what he needed to do. But the second son was placed because he just had a lot of behavior issues. He was very violent, so he placed him. She bought a house next to her house, and she placed him there where it was a distance where she can come and, you know, see him as often. And you know, when we go into these places of work, we go there as caregivers, as we are looking for employment. I'm talking about us Kenyans or us Africans who come from Africa. We didn't grow up with a lot of people in our environment with developmental disabilities. There are families that had these children, which was my family. My nephew had cerebral palsy, and I can write a whole book about that boy. And I'm sure if my sister-in-law had had the resources, that's my brother's son, she could have been a very good teacher for parents now who have children who are living with developmental disabilities. And my sister-in-law, by the way, back then, looking back, she worked 11 to 7. She worked for a phone company. You know, back in the day, they used to have overnight jobs at the phone companies, so where you can connect calls. And she did 11 to 7 and came home in the morning so she could be present. And she was a present mom. She would get sleep, and she had a caregiver in the house for my nephew. My nephew had a brain injury from the age of 3, and he died when he was 30. So I literally lived a handicapped child, meaning he was on a wheelchair, he was on diapers, he used to drool. I mean, he learned the few life skills, but my nephew could not do much. And I've lived through that. And as much as it was so difficult for me when I went to live with them, I always looked at my sister-in-law like, my God, how do you even get the courage to do this every day? And in the process, they divorced with my brother. So she was left with that child by herself. My brother remarried again. And she's one woman, when I speak about children and the challenges that the children come with, she's one woman that comes in my mind. A lot of us now are experiencing children with developmental disabilities now. We have children that have autism. We have children that have cerebral palsy. We have children that have different kinds of developmental disabilities through maybe an accident, or they were born, you know, like that. And then now we have the children that are mentally unstable because of so many things that have happened. We have children who are struggling with substance abuse. We have children that are, alcoholics. And we have children who started maybe smoking weed and somebody sold them weed that wasn't good. And now they are mentally unstable. We have children who have no identity, sexual identity. They don't know if they like men or women, or they don't know if they like women or men. Sexual identity is a big thing in our Kenyan American communities, or even in the African American community, which was a rare thing. I mean, they were gay people, they were bisexual people, but that was not something that was talked about. But now, the generation we are, our children now, who are in their 20s, their 30s, if they are identifying with a certain sex, they are coming out and they are saying, this is who I am, I like men. Or this is who I am, I like women. And I'm telling you, even just saying it the way I'm saying it like this, for a Kisi person, for a Kenyan parent, for a Nigerian parent, they will tell you, they'd rather just die. They don't want this child. But what are you going to do? These are the children. These are your children. You met someone, you married someone, you had these children. If these children cannot come to you, who can they go to? Especially children of immigrants. Because these children are not Americans and these children are not Kenyans. This is not they don't have one place. We raise them their whole life as Kenyans. But when they step out of this house, they are not Kenyans because they are born in West Hampton. They are from West Hampton. There's culture. And then we have these children who don't want to go to school. We have these children who don't want to do any chores. We have these children who want to date in middle school. Middle school is 9, 10, 12. The other day my son here, he's 12. He was telling me that, Mom, I don't have a girlfriend, but I help people get girlfriends. Hey. Hey, he's a connector. If you've read the book, The Tipping Point, everybody has a role they play in society. I don't know if you know your role. I've spoken about that book before. You need to find your role in the community. And as I laugh, let me just tell you guys about that book. You will see where Ryan is coming from. Okay, where is the book? The book is called Tipping Point. Tipping Point. Malcolm Gladwell. And what is the summary? The summary. Let me just do the voice. Tipping Point summary. Okay. So, the tipping point, there are different kind of people. Okay. Oh, let me do that one. The different kind of people in the Tipping Point book. Okay. So now, Gladwell Maxwell said there are people in the community who are connectors. Their job is to connect people, right? And there are those people in the community, they know everybody, right? They know a doctor, they know a lawyer, like now my washer is broke, they know everybody. These are connectors. Then we have the networkers, yeah? Those people, they know the large circles where they know how to network. Then, we have the people who are the social glue, those people who put people together. Then we have the Marvins, yeah? Those who possess information like expertise. These are the lawyers, the doctors, the professionals. Anyway, I say that to say that my 12-year-old is telling me that he is the connector in his school. So imagine, he's a connector. So I said, what do you mean connect them? He's like, yeah, I connect them, but me, I don't want a girlfriend. So I said, why would you connect people if you don't want a girlfriend? He said, no, they want, but they don't have the ability to approach these girls or approach these boys. So they tell me, and I help them. So I said, how do you help them? He said, he will find a way to bring them together. He'll bring the boy and then bring the girl and start the conversation. And then eventually they will start talking. So the one that sent him, once he brings them together, the ones that sent him will initiate the discussion. And then they start talking. And he told me he has succeeded in many relationships. This is my 12-year-old, and we are talking nicely. I just wish I had a recording. You guys can listen to him. He's a connector. Jesus, at 12. Okay. And he's choosing not to date right now. I said, how come you don't want to date right now? He said, oh, I thought you said we can wait. We have to wait until college. I said, yeah, because now when you connect them, what do? Because you're connecting them for what? Oh, they just talk and play together and then eat lunch together. So that's where we are. I don't know what age you started dating. I say that to say that. But I want to speak to the parents, okay? Because I'm a parent. As you can hear, I have all kinds of stories about children, and I have all ages. And what happens with parents or with the communities we come from, we don't parade our children. We don't come here and parade the kids. Like I'm just giving you that Ryan story. It's a funny story. I can share it. But there are stories that are happening to my children. I can't come and start telling you like, oh, this, because the children's privacy would have been violated. And then it's not the right thing to do. It's rare to find a parent that is parading their children and saying my child is doing this. And then I posed a question this morning. Why do parents who have done the right thing and modeled good behavior, why do their children end up doing the wrong thing? The pastor's children are always the most difficult children. The president's children, the leader's children, people who have the most discipline, people who do everything right, their children end up doing the wrong thing for whatever reason. And then these children whose parents are alcoholics, whose parents never take them on vacation, whose parents don't even care what they eat. I don't know how many cases I've heard of men or women who said their parents, my mom's boyfriend raped me, my dad's boyfriend raped me. Like there's so many rape cases. It's because the parents were irresponsible. So I asked, how come these children turn out to be very good children? And Vera Chaba, who's a doctor off of Maryland, her response was very good. I love Vera, and I like to talk on Facebook. Let me tell you guys, sometimes you pose a question and you didn't know where it is going to take, the turn it was going to take, but it takes that turn where Vera says, I said, what's the point of modeling good behavior or teaching your children everything you're supposed to do, and then they do what? They turn out to be the worst kids in town. They turn out to be the most unruly children. And Vera, with her medical degree, responded something I knew, but I liked that she said it. That you don't do this, you don't model good behavior for your children so they can turn out okay even for them. You teach your children the right thing, so that way, once they turn out however they turn out, you, the parent, your conscience is clean. You don't sit there regretting that I wish I had more time with my children. I wish that I cooked for my children. I wish that I taught my children that alcohol and substance abuse was bad. That is part of self-care. And Vera, I don't know if you're going to watch this video. Thank you for bringing that up. That is what we are preaching. You model good behavior to your children for yourself. My father used to say it all the time. My father used to say, when you guys are going to go through whatever you will go through in life, I'll be long gone dead. And there's nothing you're going to do about it. We model good behavior because we want, wherever we are in Bali, we're in Dubai, you guys see me traveling everywhere. I'm traveling at peace because I gave almost 18 years of my life to our children. I was a present parent. I cooked the fresh meals. I dropped, I picked. Okay? There's nothing I didn't do that I was supposed to do for these children. And whatever choices they want to make after I have delivered everything, that's going to be on them. I'm not going to sit somewhere feeling like, oh, I wish. Because I wish will make me take medication. I wish will make me not sleep. It's good to just do whatever you need to do for your children. So when you look back, at least you know you gave your all. So I had shared this list before. These are things I learned along the way, and I'm going to share with those ones who have young parents. Who are young parents. And I'm going to tell you, the one thing I learned as a caregiver working with people who have developmental disabilities, who are 18 plus, that's the population that I've been in for most of my life, 18 plus. The children who were born with developmental disabilities and their parents made an effort to teach these children to swim, to teach these children to brush their teeth, to teach these children to play the piano. The parents that took extra time to help their children, even if they eventually placed these children in developmental centers or in group homes, these children whose parents took time to teach them the life skills, basic life skills, thrive better in group homes, thrive better in developmental centers. If you have a special need child and you died today, you never taught that child to brush their teeth, you never taught that child to cook, you never taught that child any life skill. They are going to take that child and place that child in a group home, and now the child, and that's what we call IHPs in the group home, they are called independent rehabilitation plans. When a client comes into a group home, or when a client moves into a center where they are no longer with their parents, we have to create those goals for them. And I did that for years. And what I learned from creating those rehabilitation goals is plans, is to teach adults to brush their teeth, to teach adults to prepare a meal, to teach adults to sweep, because the parents did not take time to teach them. Okay, you're not always going to be there. Somebody is going to take over your child. You can just wake up. One day you might not wake up, or you can get up, then you have an accident. It's over. Those children the children that we are babying now are no longer going to be your responsibility, because you're going to leave this planet Earth and you're going to leave them there to someone. So as a caregiver and as someone who's worked in the group homes for years, and I'm so glad I spent so much time there, because I did not know that I was going to use those skills on our children, because you know what? Nobody knows what kind of child you're going to have. Once those things come to your house, that's when you're going to call the psychiatrist. That's when you're going to call the therapist. That's when you're going to start introducing certain foods. Even food allergies is such a big thing. Even what the carpet, you can have a child who's highly allergic to carpet. When you get married and you find an apartment with your husband or your wife, you just rent a house that has carpet. You are not thinking that your child that you're about to have is going to be allergic to carpet. The child is always itching. The child is always crying. The child is not sleeping. Then when you start doing all these tests, you find out that your child has allergies to carpet. Now you have to move to a house that doesn't have carpet. If you're not financially stable, and that's why we tell people, before you have children, try to get those finances together. If you cannot afford a house that is all wood, what are you going to do with this child? So I will highlight some of the things I've learned. And if you're interested, it's up to you. You can try to, practice some of the things. All children are different. Children don't come with a manual. There is no proper way you can sit and advise someone on how to raise children. For me, who was born and raised in structure, and I went to boarding school, I had structure here. When I had structure for almost 17, 18 years, including meal planning and prep, the children might not like it. But I've lost the structure recently when COVID hit, because now the other kids went to college. Then I have a 12-year-old. I'm working so hard after COVID with a small child staying home. He doesn't have a proper structure. He has a Kumon on Monday. On Tuesday, we go to the library. On Wednesday, we go to church. On Thursday, we have Kumon. And then on Friday, he goes to, like they can do Sky Zone or something. That is the kind of structure that these other kids had. But with COVID, things changed. And the places we used to take the kids for recreation moved away from here. So there's not much. So if you're raising children now, life is a little different. We used to have like a Chuck E. Cheese down the road. We had something. But I'm telling you, structure really worked. Now, when it comes to discipline, I was the disciplinarian in my household, and my husband was the therapist, I guess I should say. And spanking, what I have learned from my second son, who didn't like spanking at all, because I spanked the kids. In New Jersey, you're allowed to spank with your hand. You can do that. I have a different approach now. Spanking is not always the solution. Some children, which was me, growing up, I was never spanked, but I didn't like. Spanking is being hit, is physical. Looking back, I could have spanked less, right? And my daughter can tell you that, because she was like very notorious. You tell her do something, she'll tell you, you do it. Where I come from, Nyandochevere, that is not flying. Go make your bed, you make your bed too. That calls for spanking. That's culture. But now these children, we need to, you guys who are coming up behind us, when a child is like that, there is underlying things you are not seeing. Pay attention. Don't always respond with hitting, because that hitting is not the solution. Because long term, when you come to like follow through, you look at the history, and where, let's say, my daughter is now, she's just a strong-willed child. You're not just going to tell her things. Everything you're going to tell her, she has to review it before she approves it. That's who she's been. And then there's house rules. Every summer, we adjusted the house rules, because summer, the kids were home. So we sat with the kids after the school closed, and we created a structure of the things they needed to do. Wake up at 8, walk the dog, they had the dogs, take out the trash. So you have to make those rules so they know, because you cannot raise kids who are just doing anything. The rules have to be there so they know this cannot, don't leave dishes in the sink. If it's Monday, you need to take the trash. You can't play the video games. You need some house rules to teach the children to respect authority. Meal planning. I had the same menu for 17 years that is stuck on the side of my fridge. Nutrition is everything. If you don't think it's everything, it's everything. My children used to eat out once a week. And there's a phase they went through where they, once they started working, which is like 17, 18, they would eat out. They went through that phase for a little bit, and I'm telling you, they all bounced back to home food. They'd rather just come home and make a meal and eat. So don't feel bad that you're making them eat that home food, and don't start the outside food early. Introduce fast food a little bit later, because once you get used to McDonald's, Popeyes, or whatever fast food, it's hard for them to eat at home. And there's not very good, healthy fast food restaurants out here. So you can allow them to eat out once a week is okay, because it's scheduled and that's part of the structure. But don't get in that habit of where the children are saying, McDonald's, you pull over, because it's going to affect their health. Okay? Food shopping. I used to have a notepad. These notepads are sold in Staples. You can go to Staples, you'll get this. These notepads, when you peel it, it has glue. So this, I still have a box of them. This used to sit on the fridge. So that way, when something is finished, they can write whatever is finished, and then on Saturdays, we used to go food shopping. So involve your children in food shopping. So that way, they can learn at early ages to make good choices whatever they are buying. So they can know whatever they are buying is what they are consuming. Remember, they are the ones who are doing the meal prep. So they need to go out there, pick the ground beef. They need to know what makes pasta. They need to know what makes chicken. They need to know how their food ends on their table. So let them be a part of the food shopping. Now, working in high school and college, this is still varies from child to child. I did not personally want our children to work. But my daughter ended up working at 17 because she was teaching in a Kumon center where she went for Kumon. And, hold on a minute. Hello? Hey, what's up? Let me check. I'll call you right back. All right. Yeah. So she worked because she would go there. She used to go there twice a week. She would teach and then she will be taught. But my oldest son did not work in high school because when I evaluated him, he didn't look like he was going to Jago school and work. So he didn't start working until he went to college. There is no proper way for working and not working, but it's good to evaluate the child and see, is it something they can do? Don't deny them, but make sure, you've told them that if you're going to work, make sure you're keeping up with school. Even the schools, if they fail in class, the school don't allow them to work because they have to get permission to do that. There's cultural differences. And I tell the kids that I'm Kisi, my husband is Kamba. We have a lot of cultural differences. Be mindful of your cultural differences that are going to rub the children the wrong way. Some of the cultural differences are huge. You might not think so, they're huge. Last week I was telling my daughter that the Kisi tribe, we circumcise the girls. Like we literally, you go to like, I think they used to do, like my time things have changed. They used to take them, I don't know which bush, I'm yet to find out. And they take you to some kind of bush and a woman uses a knife to remove your clitoris. This is my mother's time. And she stopped for a minute. She says, who does that? She's 22. I said, that is the Kisi tradition. She said, why? I said, because the Kisi people were polygamous and they thought that the easiest way to keep a woman's sex drive down is to remove their clitoris. And it's not something like, oh, it's a big deal. It was very much normalized. She was like, oh my God, that is terrible. Yes, because those are cultural differences. Now, I told her by the time I was coming up, things had changed, right? So they took us, the young girls, to a hospital. The government was intervening because a lot of children were dying, because that's the question she asked. Were these girls not bleeding to death? Yes, a lot of these girls bled to death. So with more knowledge and more education, which is now going on, and you should know that people who are still circumcising girls in Sierra Leone and in Kisi, the government started doing kind of intervention, telling people that do not circumcise these girls, because once they cut that vein from your clitoris, you're going to bleed to death. And a lot of girls bled to death. So anyway, my time, which is now in the 80s, they decided to take us to the hospital for circumcision. And I told her the hospital that we were taken to was a woman, a husband and wife. She was a Sister Manduku, and I believe she was a doctor, and her husband was Dr. Manduku. They owned the hospital. So they took us there for circumcision. I think it was my sister and I. We were a bunch of girls there. But the thing that happened there is we were not circumcised. We stayed there, and the Sister Manduku came and, told us, these things are changing. I don't even remember what she said. For whatever reason, we just stayed there, and then when the week ended, I'm telling you, that lady, and we went back. But when we went back, some of us, like me, my mom never came to check if I was circumcised or not. So they knew that period. I think it's something that had started happening, and they just kept it hush-hush. And I'm talking about the Kisi people. My mom never, took me to the room to see if they actually circumcised me, because it was a big thing. And then, fast forward, I told her, one of my friends, who up to today can cry about that real tears, her mother checked her. When her mother found that they did not circumcise her, she took her back and asked Sister Manduku to make sure that clitoris was removed. That is a woman my age. I'm talking about cultural differences. And they did not see anything wrong with that. So when we are explaining this to our children, you guys need to understand that this is news to them. Especially if you don't live in your home village, you don't live in your city. This is just something different. It's like here in America, when I'm with a mother, daughter, son, husband, and they're using the F word. The F word in a group of setting with Americans is a normal word. Me, I'm looking around like, oh, the Americans can use the F word even in church, and they are spiritual leaders. So those are cultural differences that we need to explain to our children. Let's talk also about alcohol and drugs. Most of us Kenyans, we drink in our homes. Our children have access to alcohol from a very young age, but most parents are not even aware. So our children could start drinking as young as 5 because some parents are not responsible. So you need to take time. Talk to your children about alcohol and drugs. And then now weed, especially in New Jersey, weed is legalized. And weed is legalized, but at the same time, this weed is not pure weed. It's weed that has been put with something. So your children's mental status is going to be affected because they are not only just smoking weed that is regular weed, it's weed that has been laced, and we are losing children every week, we are losing children every month. And you know the saddest part, every child, Kenyan American or American child, American Kenyan, all these children we've lost to drugs and alcohol or suicide. There's not been 1 or 2 parents that I know personally that has taken the courage to even start creating awareness. We are all in denial. We don't want to believe. We don't even want people to know that our children died of drug overdose. We don't want people to know that our children died of alcohol abuse. We don't want anybody to know. And that's one thing I admire the white Americans for. If their child died of a drug overdose, it's a drug overdose. They open a non-profit organization to save other children. But we, the Africans, we just say we don't know what happened. The child was found dead, we don't know what happened. And in America, there is an autopsy because we are still embarrassed of drugs and alcohol. If your child has died of drug and alcohol, I know people are looking at me, they're like, it didn't happen to you yet, but you learn. It can happen to anybody. If anybody can get into a car accident, anybody who has a child, their child could be an alcoholic. So if there is a way we can create more awareness to our children, to our community, that drugs and alcohol is bad. And then there is the dating part. I don't even know, for me, I wanted my children to date in college. I didn't want my children to pass the window of dating. Don't date, finish college fast, and then there are no men. Or finish college fast, there's no women. No. For me, once my children turned 18, I wanted them to actively date if they wanted to. And now when they are dating, they are meeting these people who are destroying them. But talk to them about dating. Talk to them about families they are marrying into. Talk about the influence a partner can have. At least create awareness so that way they know when they are getting in these relationships, anything can happen. Okay? And then let's talk about money. Money matters. Money does matter. Let us not lie to ourselves that money doesn't matter. Money matters. Teach the children how to manage the money. Because financial scarcity is a big problem. We are all struggling. There is no money here. Almost most of us have 2-3 jobs. So teach the children to manage the little money that they start earning from high school. Okay? I've spoken about parents modeling good behavior because you know what? You want to look back and be grateful that you modeled good behavior. You don't want to look back and regret. And then there is what we call mentorship. My son and I, Dylan, were talking about. Surround your children with people that can mentor your children. All children need different mentors. There's a child who talks. There's a child who doesn't talk. There's a child who is like very reserved. There's a child who shares everything. It is your responsibility, if you have 4 children, to align each of your children with a mentor, because the mentor is everything for your child. Your child is not always going to tell you everything. Some things are not reserved for parents. Some things are reserved for aunties, for uncles. Don't keep your children away from their relatives. The relatives are not going anywhere. You start life with your family, you end life with a family. taking your children and living in isolation because you don't want them to talk to so and so, it is just a disaster waiting to happen. Help your children find mentors. Help your children create relationships that can hold them together. When they become adults, you are not going to be their everything. Just like your husband can't be everything, your wife can't be everything, a parent cannot be everything to their child. Sometimes it takes another person to help you. Now, when we talk about children who are living with developmental disabilities, my dear immigrant parents, and I'm speaking as a caregiver, and I'm speaking as someone who spent 20-something years now, I think this is 25 years now, I've been working with people who have developmental disabilities. Tomorrow, you will not be there. Don't be embarrassed that you have a child that has autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome. Do not be embarrassed of your child. Early intervention. For any of the children that I've spoken, early intervention is everything. If your child is abusing drugs, if you catch them early, you might help them. If your child is abusing alcohol, if you catch it, you might help them. If your child is going through a mental breakdown, mental illness, if you catch it early, you will help them. If you're having a disease, if you catch it on stage 1, you are able to save that disease or you can be treated. Early intervention is everything. There's a few Kenyans that I know that are bold, like my friend Cindy, that has been very active in the community with her son. She goes to every function. She used to, lately she has not come. She would come here and will just let her son be. And she has done an amazing job. Don't miss functions because your children have developmental disabilities. Don't miss functions because your children have hair that Seventh-day Adventist doesn't allow. Don't keep your children in the house because they are wearing certain clothes that the Kenyan community is not allowing. Your children, you should love them the same way when they were doing well and the same way when they are not doing well. That's what I'm learning as a parent. Your love for your children does not change. You don't owe the community good children. You don't owe the community a child who doesn't have special needs. And you parents who have the so-called normal children, give those parents grace. When you see these parents with these children in our events, help those parents. Even step in for them. Those parents can take a day off and just go somewhere. Help these parents. They need help because they cannot trust Americans who don't know their culture to come into their homes to help them. It's you within the Kenyan community, within the Nigerian, within the Liberian. I'm speaking to immigrants in the U.S. And there's Evelyn, who has worked so hard. Evelyn, how old is your son now? She's in Kenya. And she takes her son everywhere. Because you know what? If you leave this child behind because you're embarrassed, who do you think is going to take care of that child? God gave you that child. God gave you the child that is an alcoholic. God gave you the child that is a drug dealer. God gave you the child that doesn't want to go to college. God gave you that child that doesn't want to take showers, doesn't want to clean. That's your child. If you cannot take pride in your child, how can you help that child? There's nobody who can help that child for you. And guess what? Good parents have bad children. And bad parents have good children. What is the definition of good children? In our society, good children are children who you teach things and they follow. In our society, bad children are children who refuse school. They don't want to do chores. They don't want to do nothing. They don't listen to anybody. They can barely sweep their room. They can barely do laundry. We need to move away from being embarrassed and feeling shameful. And that's how come we are not doing early intervention. Because once you know the child has a problem, the earlier you know, the better you're going to save this child. Yeah, Evelyn's son is 9. And I've been planning, Evelyn, now I have time. I've been planning to come talk to her. And you know, when she goes everywhere, people are staring at her child. The last time I was in Kenya with her, people are always staring at the child, especially children with autism. They don't look like they have developmental disabilities. They look fine, until they start doing certain things. Then, you know, in Kenya is even worse. People are going to be like, this big child, what are you doing? And you know, you can't even blame those people either. We can educate them. We can tell them that this is how this child is, and this is the best way you can support my son. This is the best way you can support my daughter. And I'll finish with what Vera says. Vera said, you don't become a good parent for anybody. You want to become a good parent so you don't live in regrets, where you're going to say, I wish I had time to take my kids to the park. I wish I had time to listen to my children. I wish I took my children for ice cream. I wish I told my children I love them. And like I said, when I started this video, I'm not a judge. I have not achieved it. Tinkerochi, I have not made it. And I don't ask anybody to subscribe to my narrative. But when the consequences come, you will know it's a choice you make. We all make these choices. It's a choice you made and you can live with it. So don't make your choice a community problem when you refuse to make the better choice that was going to save your child. Don't come and tell people, I wish I knew. You know. There is no children who come with manuals. And it doesn't matter your level of education. It doesn't matter your level of financial success. Once you give birth to a child, it is even hard to know what kind of child you're going to give birth to. And another thing I'm seeing with a lot of parents who have resented their parents, forgiveness is a big thing. Some of these couples, partners, our spouses, once the children, especially the men, once the children start having behavior problems, and I even remember my mom's time and my father's, every mistake that the children made was my mom's fault, and we are still doing it. Most men are blaming the women for every bad thing the child is doing. It's like a woman's fault that the children ended up where they ended up. And you know, we are naturals. That's our job. We have been given those children. When your child is down, that's not the time to put the child down. Most men's theory is like, oh, just mchape. Kwani akuletea ujinga. Like, just spank the rubbish out of the child. And then when things go south, it's the mother who's going to have sleepless nights because God trusted us with those children. But I know some fathers who are knowledgeable. I know some fathers that have understood that times have changed. I know some fathers that are creating time with their children because they know mental illness is real. They know substance and alcohol abuse is starting at 9. An average alcohol user, they said in America, is a 9-year-old because the alcohol is in their house. So you're not the exception. And if you love your children, you're going to make all those sacrifices that we've talked about. God bless you and have a wonderful evening. Go to my YouTube channel. Let me share that channel. And I'm going to move this video over there. So that way, the upcoming parents can learn from some of us who went ahead of you guys and learned things a little different. The mistakes we made. We can tell you we don't want you guys to make these mistakes. You can do better than us. Especially on spanking. If you must spank a child, do it in moderation. Don't do it the way like our parents even wanted. The parent just harms the child. Because that's physical abuse. As much as we don't want to think it is physical abuse. Before you spank a child, think twice. And that is something our children have insisted for us to learn. Yes, spank, but spank in moderation. Don't spank in anger. Spank when you think like this is really needs spanking. Because if you just spank with anger, you're just going to, it looks like violence, or it is violence. Thank you for watching. God bless you and have a good afternoon.